learners. Good morning, learners. Today we are exploring one of the most important concepts in economics: utility. This is about why you choose certain goods and services and how satisfaction drives your decision as a consumer. And as a matter of fact, we are looking at the section 3 utility. In the strand, we are looking at consumers' rational decision making. Sub-strand, consumer behavior. And the focal area 1, we consider the concept of utility. Learning outcomes and objectives. By the end of this lesson, we expect learners to be able to apply utility concepts into everyday life. The essential questions that we want to consider is: how does satisfaction differ from person to person when consuming the same good or service? How does satisfaction differ from person to person when consuming the same good or service? And 2, we're considering how can understanding utility help me make better decisions about how I spend my money and time. What is utility? What is utility? Utility is a simple but powerful concept. It refers to the satisfaction, 1, happiness, 2, or well-being that you derive from consuming goods and services. You see that there are 3 words that stands out: satisfaction, happiness, and well-being. Think about it this way: when you drink water after playing football, you feel satisfied. That satisfaction is utility. When you eat your favorite food or meal, the happiness you feel is utility. Utility is subjective, meaning it varies from person to person. What brings higher satisfaction to one person may not bring the same satisfaction to another. For example, some of you might love football, while others prefer reading. Both activities provide utility, but in different amounts for different people. Look at this person. Happiness that he derived from consuming water, that's utility. Let's assume that you have walked a very long distance and it was tasty. When he came across this water, after drinking the water, the happiness that came, the well-being, the satisfaction, that is utility. Look at this. Children too. That's as they are also eating their favorite meal. The happiness you get from consuming their favorite meal is satisfaction. The happiness, the well-being, that is utility. Let's consider the key characteristics of utility. 1, subjective. Utility is subjective. What it means is that it varies from one person, it varies from person to person. This means it's personal to you. Your satisfaction from a smartphone is different from your friend's satisfaction from the same phone. Another key factor highlighted here is personal. Utility is personal, based on individual preferences. What it means is that it depends on your taste, your preferences, and circumstances. A student in Accra might derive different utility from a car than a student in a rural area. Third, utility is measurable, that it can be evaluated. We can evaluate and compare the satisfaction we get from different goods. You might say, I got more satisfaction from food than from a new shirt. Fourth, utility influences demand. It affects what we buy. The more utility you expect from a good, the more likely you are to buy it. This directly affects the price and availability of goods in the market. Utility in your daily life. Real life scenarios is what? Images. We have seen utility isn't just about buying things. It's about every decision you make. Let me give you a practical example. Example 1, time management. That is student studying. You are looking at time management. So here you are looking at student studying, the time management, how he's going to manage his time. You have limited time. You must have decided between studying, playing football, socializing, or sleeping. You allocate your time based on the utility, that is satisfaction you expect from each activity. If an exam is approaching or coming, you must study more because that brings you higher utility right now. The second I want to consider is student eating. That you're looking at food satisfaction over here. If you are hungry and you come across food, the first meal will give a certain satisfaction, second meal will give a certain satisfaction, but you see that the first one will give you a higher satisfaction than the second one. Or even look at how you allocate your money towards buying food. You see pocket money as a student. You decide whether to buy food. Your choice is based on opinions you give to the otherwise you buy in your school, for instance, whether you should go and buy Mambisa or NST. Your choice will depend on which option will give you the most satisfaction, the high utility. You look at using consumer choice. Student using phone, that technology utility. When you buy a phone, you compare different models. You choose the one that gives you the best value for your money. The highest utility per Ghana cedi spent. You look at that. The next one is what? Student choosing career path as future utility. When you finish SHS, you choose a career. You consider which career path will give you the most satisfaction. whether that is money, job security, helping others, or personal fulfillment. That's utility thinking. Now we look at utility and consumer behavior from that flow diagram or chart over there. You have consumer preference being linked to utility expectations, then purchase decision, then we come to satisfaction level. Understand utility helps us understand why consumers make the choices they do. Here's how it works. Step one, as we have the consumer preference. Consumer have a preference. It's based on your taste and circumstances. You prefer certain goods over others. That is your preference. Then the second one, you expect utility. You expect to have certain satisfaction from that. You anticipate how much satisfaction you will get from each option that you choose or you take. So utility expectation. Then comes what? You make a decision. That's the purchase decision. You choose the option that you believe will give you the highest utility. And the fourth step is your satisfaction level. That is, you experience satisfaction. After consuming the good, you either feel satisfied or disappointed. This cycle repeats every day. When you are hungry, you expect utility from food, so you buy it. When you are tired, you expect utility from rest, so you sleep. When you want to communicate, you expect utility from your phone, so you use it. Companies understand this. They try to make their product more attractive by showing you how much utility, how much satisfaction you will get from buying their product. That is why advertisement is so powerful. Utility and budgeting. One of the most practical applications of utility is budgeting. So from the screen we see budget allocation chart showing food, transport, entertainment, savings, and other. You're looking at allocating your resources based on utility. So when you have limited money, you must decide how to spend it. You do this by evaluating the utility you get from each purchase. For example, if you have 100 Ghana cedis, you must allocate it like this. Look on the screen. Food, 40 Ghana cedis for food. And that will be 40% of what your money going in for there. Because food provide high utility, it's essential. Then 20 Ghana cedis for transport to get to school. So that one also takes about 20% of your income. Then for entertainment, to relax and enjoy, 15 Ghana cedis go for that. That also takes about 15% of your money. Then the next one is savings. Saving for the future needs. Also takes about 15 Ghana cedis, which represent 15% of your budget. Then the last one they list for others, that's miscellaneous, 10 Ghana cedis for that. That also represents 10% of your budget. You make this allocation based on which goods and services give you the highest utility per Ghana cedi spent. This is called maximizing utility. By understanding utility, you can budget more effectively and make smarter financial decisions. Utility and economic demand. Utility and economic demand. So when a good has a higher utility, it also demands a higher demand and a higher price. In much the same way, when a good has a lower utility, it commands a lower demand and a lower price. So let's look at these three examples: iPhone versus basic phone. So the iPhone will have a higher utility and, for that matter, a higher price, while that basic phone, let's say keypad, will have a lower utility and, for that matter, lower price. So here is an important economic principle. Utility directly influences demand and demand influences price. When many consumers expect a higher utility from a product, demand increases. When demand increases, the price often increases too. For example, as I showed you on the screen, iPhones are expensive because many consumers expect high utility from them. They are seen as status symbols. They are reliable and they have many features. On the other hand, that basic phone, that keypad, are cheaper because consumers expect lower utility from them. They just make calls and send messages with them. The same principles applies to services. A skilled doctor charges more than a junior doctor because patients expect higher utility from the skilled doctor's expertise. A popular restaurant, that's another scenario, charges more than a small food store. Why? Because consumers expect high utility from the dining experience of the restaurant. Understand this relationship between utility, demand, and price helps you understand how markets work. It also helps you make better decisions as a consumer and later as a business owner. Key takeaways. The summaries with key points. 1. Utility. What is it? It's the satisfaction from consuming goods or service. That's the first thing you have to take home. When we talk about satisfaction, when we talk about utility, we are just referring to satisfaction from consuming goods or service. The second one is that utility is subjective and personal. Is that it differs from one person to another. It also depends on personal preferences. And the next one is utility influences all. So utility is subjective. It varies from person to person based on preference and circumstances. Then the next one, utility influences all consumer decisions. From what you buy to how you spend your time, it's being influenced by your utility. The fourth one is Understanding utility helps with budgeting and decision making. So understanding utility helps you budget effectively and make smarter financial decisions. And last but not the least, utility drives demand markets. Utility drives demand in markets, which affects prices and availability of goods. These concepts will help you become a more informed consumer and a better decision maker in your personal and professional life. Before we take leave for today's lesson, here's a quick question that I want you to either oral or write, but I want you to write it down. Whilst because we are having a virtual learning. So I'm going to give you certain minutes, I'll give you a certain question. Within that time, I want you to write. Later I'll give you the answer and you check with yours whether you are right. And I believe you are going to get it right. The first question is a quick check question. What is utility? So now write your answer down. So what I was expecting you to write is satisfaction or happiness from consuming goods or service. That's satisfaction. The second one is give one example of utility from your own life. Give one example of utility from your own life. Expected answer. Any personal example like eating, playing, studying, and what have you, etc. That's what I was expecting, the expected answer from you. The next one is, why is utility subjective? Why is utility subjective? The expected answer is because different people get different satisfaction from the same good. That's why utility is subjective. Now let's consider one application question. I want to see extended thinking from you as my students. You have 20 Ghana cedis. You can buy either a meal or credit for your phone. How will you decide which to buy? Explain your thinking using the concept of utility. You have 20 Ghana cedis. You can buy either a meal or credit for your phone. How will you decide which to buy? Explain your thinking using the concept of utility. So this is the expected answer from you. I expect you to explain that they will choose the option that gives them the highest utility, the most satisfaction, based on their current needs and preferences. Thumbs up. I know you got all the answers correct. If you couldn't, better up next time. Today, you have learned that utility is the satisfaction you get from consuming goods and services. You have seen how utility affects your daily decisions, from what you buy to how you spend your time. You have also learned that utility is personal and subjective. What brings high satisfaction to one person might not bring the same satisfaction to another. As you move forward, remember to think about utility when making consumer decisions. Ask yourself, will this purchase give me the satisfaction I expect? Is it worth the price? This critical thinking will help you become a smarter consumer and a better decision maker. Well done today. See you next lesson. Thank you.